All right, welcome to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. We appreciate everybody taking the week off this past week. We rolled out a story that didn't go live. We had issues posting, and I know I explained, but it drove me nuts. We had to get the story out there. We love Todd Bumgardner and the training stuff he does. I've been working through his kind of training plan for an elk hunt we've got coming up here in a couple weeks. So love it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. But now we're back to our Getting Right series. And so we've talked about, everything from layering to the right boots. And, I was thinking through things that might be helpful and maybe questions that we get. And I'm like, man, archery archery prep is going to be a big one. And, if you're following us at all, like that's a lot of our deer hunting is archery hunting. And so what I wanted to do is bring Nick Betts in. Nick, you've been on the podcast before. We work with Redline, but I figured you have a unique perspective and an informed perspective on archery prep and deer hunting and everything else. Is like, got to get you guys in. And so what I'm going to do is kind of run through some questions that we've come up with for you, Nick. I know by way of introduction, everybody, like I said, Redline and Trophyline. We love you guys and have been working with you forever. So appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you being willing to share some of your knowledge.
Well, thanks for having me again. It's always a blast. So I'm happy to get it. I've enjoyed the series so far. So hopefully we can expand on it and everybody likes what I have to say too.
That's right. No, they better like what you have to say.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Fair Chase podcast. We're going to take a few seconds here to thank a few sponsors that helped make this show possible.
We are big fans of having glass with you when you're in the woods. So whether we're turkey hunting, bear hunting, deer hunting, whatever we're doing, we're bringing some sort of glass. Actually, one of the new fun pieces of glass that we've added to our collection were the UHD 18 by 56s.
Big boys.
I like them because then you don't need to bring a full spotter, and you can still do pretty well.
Yeah.
I like the 2 eyes. So we love Vortex. We use a lot of their optics on our rifles, on our chest when we're out.
Rangefinders, they got
rangefinders, amazing. So we'll love them. Go check them out. And actually, if you're going to buy some, check out Midway USA and use the promo code TFC10 for 10% off your order. I promise you won't be disappointed. Go check them out, Vortex Optics.
HuntWise is an awesome app. There's a lot of them out there. This one's definitely our favorite. They're local here in Grand Rapids, have their headquarters here. They have an awesome HuntCast 2.0 that's going to give you weather prediction, wind prediction, anything based off the pin and property that you're hunting to give you the best day to get out there and hunt. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Go get this app, huntwise.com.
We've shot a lot of bows, but for the past 5 or so years, we've been shooting prime bows. Love the way they shoot, super stable. And what we're really excited
Great
about
warranty.
Great warranty. And this year they rolled out the RevX series, which is pretty sweet. We've been talking about the different RevXs we're going to be shooting.
And you're going in the 6Y?
I'm deciding to shoot the 36, which is a
The
longer
only
axis,
reason he's choosing the 36
is because I figure the bigger the bow, the
Don't
bigger
say
the
it.
buck. So we're going to test that out. Follow us this year to see if that actually happens. But that's what I'm shooting. You're shooting the RevX 4.
Yep.
So anyways, we love Prime. Michigan company. Great guys. Go check them out. G5prime.com. We put a lot of miles on whether we're
Our boots.
Yeah, on our boots. Whether it's Alaska out west, even here in Michigan.
Let's just say the muck boots were left in the truck.
Yes. So we need something that's comfortable, that'll keep us dry, that's durable, and actually we like a little stiffer soled when we're hunting from our platform or when we're saddle hunting. So we wear Lathrop & Son boots. I've been wearing the Mountain Hunter Encompass, and yours is the
Mountain Hunter Elite.
Great boots. Great guys from down in Illinois, the Lathrop brothers. Had them on an episode in the past. Go check it out. Go check out their boots, Lathrop & Sons.
If you didn't already know that James and I are saddle hunters, then you do now. And if you don't like it, then go listen to somebody else because we're going to talk about saddles. We wear Trophyline tree saddles because we think they're awesome. And they come out with some awesome new products all the time. They just came out with a new Venatic saddle that is seriously the best saddle I've ever sat in. And I've sat in quite a bit of them. They also have the new Onyx platform out.
I spent some time on it this fall.
I've spent some time on it. It's pretty sweet. And they're going to continue to come out with sweet products just like those two. So stay tuned to them. They've got social media, trophyline.com. And save yourself 10%.
TFC 10. it's no use having an awesome bow if you don't have great accessories. So sights, stabilizers, things like that. And so that's why we chose to work with Redline bow accessories. And so those guys are coming out with amazing new things, whether it be new stabilizers or sights like this. If you're watching on our YouTube or video podcast, this new torch sight. So we're huge fans of this sight. Double pin. You know what? Go check out our past episode with them or check out their website. There's a ton to like about this site. Their stabilizers are great, and actually some of their quivers are incredible.
Yes.
So go check them out. Listen to the last episode we did with them. Oh, and save yourself 10% with the code TFC10.
No, that's
We'll
great.
see.
So there's two kind of categories when I think of archery prep. It's like, is your gear right? And then are like you right? Like, and by you, I mean like, are you practicing? Are you good to go? So what I'm going to do for this kind of is start with gear. So let's just jump right in. You know, I'm far into my prep for the season. Again, you know, you do a out west hunt, maybe your pronghorn or something, and that kind of moves up your preparation date because, you know, you're not starting October 1, say if you're in Michigan. For whitetail, you got like maybe August or September. And so I've been starting to work through my gear prep and checking things and everything else. So let's start there. People are, you know, starting to think about the fall. They've been listening to this series, getting excited, and maybe they're thinking like, is my bow ready? I mean, it's sat in the garage for all the off season. You know, a lot of that is true, and that's, you know, I feel like that's, you might get hated on for that, but that's plenty okay to leave your bow aside and take care of family things and all the other great things you do in the year. But like, all right, so you go grab your bow and you want to, you're just like, is it ready to go? What, you know, Nick, what things should people be checking to make sure maybe that their bow is ready? Like, you know,
Sure.
tuning, broadhead, stuff like that. Go ahead.
Obviously, so first, I would start with the safety aspect, right? So make sure your limbs are in good standing. There's no cracks. Nothing seems loose. And then I always check my strings and cables, right? Do they need replaced? This kind of factors in more of how much you shoot, right? So if that bow sat in the garage all summer, you weren't shooting it every day, every week, you're probably fine as long as it's in good standing. But if you're a guy that's out there shooting constantly, you probably already know this, but in theory, you should be replacing that string every year. But just inspect it, make sure, I mean, if it's in the garage, make sure there's no mildew growing on it, right? Because stuff gets in those strings. You hunt all year. And, you know, if you overly wax your strings, it can just let that debris and stuff pile up. So one thing I will do is I'll take a little bit of dental floss and I'll kind of girth it around the string. And I run that in between the servings and stuff to pull off anything extra that's on there.
Are you running it down it? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So I'll basically like just tie it around it and then pull it down in between the servings with the exposed string itself. Because if you're out there and you're hunting in nasty weather, if you had your bow on the ground a lot, you're crawling through stuff, you just might have some debris or gunk, let's just say, in that string. So I'll clean all that off. And that's just basic right before I start doing anything. It doesn't take very long, but I just typically do that. And then I'll re-wax it with some new wax. So as long as everything's in good standing, there's no safety issues with the bow. First thing you're going to do, from what I do, is I'll go take some shots, right? See how your arrows are acting. Do you need to tune anything? So paper tuning is always a good idea. It's pretty simple to do. You shoot through paper, close to a target, see how the hole is. If you get a bullet hole, great. If you don't, left or right, up or down, you got to adjust your rest.
And paper tuning it for a while, for me at least, it was very daunting for whatever reason. I was like, oh, I can't, you know, I got to shoot through this thing. And honestly, it's like the easiest thing. And it's something that not only have I started doing prior to season, but during the season. I had a bad incident with that last year out in Alaska, and got out there and my bow had fallen out of tune in travel. Or actually during the trip, as I was kind of doing the hunt. And man, did that really bite me in the butt. So it's huge. Easy to do.
It's pretty simple. It's very easy to do. So obviously the first thing I do is make sure your arrow is level, or at least as close to level as you could possibly get it. So I'm kind of trying to focus on things that don't require a press, because not everybody has a press and people maybe are intimidated by them. Yeah. So things you can do at home: adjusting your rest up and down, making sure your arrow is actually level first. And then when you're taking your shots, are things going left to right? So if you shoot long enough, you're going to tell as the arrow is flying, something's wrong. Like you can see the tail moving, or you can see the arrow pushing up or trying to fall down sooner than it should. Sometimes that can have to do with your rest timing, and that does require a press in most cases. So that's a little bit outside of it. So if you do your paper tuning and you have some issues, then I would go to a local archery shop if you're not comfortable using a press yourself. But paper tuning is pretty simple. It's just try to get that bullet hole through paper. Literally, you could take any kind of paper you want, strap it up in front of you with a target behind it, let an arrow rip.
Yep.
Now, do that. I do that with just my field points, obviously, to start. And then once that's good, once I have my paper tuning right, then I'll slap my broadhead on. So you obviously want to have your broadheads hitting with your field points. So unfortunately, if you're shooting a fixed blade, you might lose some fletchings here, but it is what it is. So obviously, once I get that process of adjusting your broadhead is identical to your paper tuning. So you're shooting your field point. If your broadhead isn't hitting with your field point, you're going to have to adjust your rest to put those two together.
So say you're out shooting, you throw some arrows down range, and your broadheads are hitting right of your field points. What do you do?
Yeah. So if you're hitting right of your field points, you're going to have to adjust your rest.
You follow the arrow, right?
Yeah, you're following the arrow. Sorry about that.
No, I say it because I know what you mean. It's like all of a sudden it's like, wait, what do I do again? You know, and you have to say it out loud.
So you're moving that over, and you don't need to make big movements here. Rest movements change a lot. Small movements in your rest change a lot. You can sit there and tinker for a half hour, and you're going to have everything right in. And honestly, being able to have the confidence to move your rest or move your sight, things like that, at your house without somebody that, archery professional there with you showing you how to do it, you just kind of have to do it. Like, I kind of want people to be off a little bit and have to do it.
Yeah.
So once you get your rest adjusted and you get your broadhead tuning in with your field points, then I always shoot at least one broadhead when I'm doing practice, right? So even if I know my broadhead is shooting with my field points, I will still shoot one every time I go out there, just so I have confidence in that head. That's just me. I kind of, if you use broadheads that do have practice tips, then that's great. Go with that. A lot of them nowadays don't. So I typically sacrifice one in practice that I use and will end up sharpening before season. So I always do that. But those simple tuning practices, you can take care of that in the first day or two of you doing preseason. After that, it's consistency. And then putting yourself in situations that mimic what you might be doing or might be seeing out in the woods. So we can touch on that as far as the practice point. I know you got a couple more questions here on gear, but really just getting the paper tuning down and your broadheads hitting with your field points. And I also mean this for mechanical heads, right? So just because it's mechanical and just because it should fly like a field point, if that, whatever company you're buying your products from, if they have a practice head, buy it, shoot it, because it's not identical to a field point. And maybe you're going to sacrifice a mechanical even in that practice as well. But you just have to do it, because if you don't, you're putting yourself in a situation where you just really don't know what's going on. So the first time you shoot a mechanical is that the deer of a lifetime, and you don't know what's going to happen. Man, that scares me, because I'm a guy that if it's going to go wrong, it will. So I have to vet everything that I'm doing in the woods.
Have you found, what's the distance you like to tune your broadheads heads at to compare them to your field points?
Field points, 20? I walk it back. So I'll do 20, 30, 40.
Okay.
So that's typically what I do. And then once I get 20, 30, 40 hitting where I want them, then I'm going to go back as far as I really realistically think I'm going to shoot at whatever animal I'm shooting at. So if it's whitetail, typically I'm never taking a shot past 40, but occasionally there's opportunities and the conditions are right, the clearance is there, I might be able to do it. So I'll shoot 50, and I might just shoot 60 to make myself feel more confident when I'm at 20.
The more accurate it is at 60, it's like then when you're shooting something at 20 yards, they're
for sure. Exactly. And it's more than archery is so mental, right? So you can get your gear perfect, but if your head's not right, you just don't know. Like you have to put yourself in awkward situations in practice so that when that awkward situation happens in the woods, you've been there before. So
I've had that even like, I've even had that, like, I wasn't shooting, and this was a while back, but like wasn't shooting with my bino harness on. in practice, and it was a
yes.
new bino harness. And I, after switching back and forth between trad and compound, like I have a different draw cycle than I used to. And I was like, all of a sudden I'm out there and I'm like, kind of reaching more than I'm used to because I'm drawing lower than I used to because I just kind of switching back and forth had messed with my form quite a bit.
Yeah, there's all those things go into it. But yeah, when you're tuning your broadheads, for me, I do 20, 30, 40 at a minimum.
Yeah.
And then I'm pretty comfortable. And then I push myself farther just for myself.
Does that change how your field point flies when you're making those adjustments? Like, is that like messing up?
It'll move your field points a little bit. But really what you want is them to be together, right?
Yeah.
So then when you're confident not shooting that broadhead in practice, you know that it's going to hit where the field point is.
Yeah.
Right. So if you move anything, obviously the field point is going to be moving as well.
Yeah.
But it's not going to move as drastic as those broadheads, that's for sure.
That's helpful. So, I mean, that's a great piece of maintenance. What other like regular maintenance things are you doing to your bow aside from that? I will say one thing is the string. You mentioned if you shoot a lot. One other, I meant to say this earlier. I have found my string get eaten up every year because I'm brush busting, and like I didn't know it, but like all of a sudden I look at my string and it's like the briars and stuff are just eating up my string, and it's like actually kind of unsettling. Like I've been just walking around clearing brush with my bow.
Yep.
Probably should get a cover for it at some point, but that's another way that like you might even not shoot a lot, but if you're kind of brush busting and getting in thick stuff, like it's gonna eat it up.
Inspecting your equipment, it doesn't matter if it's your bow, it's your climbing gear, it's your gun and gun suit, all of it. Just always inspect your gear because you don't want that thing to go wrong out in the woods. So yeah, making sure your strings are taken care of. There's no right or wrong on, this many shots means a new string.
Yeah.
But it's just making sure it looks good. Like I said, if you shoot every day or every week, you're probably going to want to get a new string because they stretch over time. It changes how your bow shoots. But if you're doing, let's say a typical archery hunter who shoots a little bit before season and then through season, after February, they're finishing watching sports, they're hanging out with the family, this and that. And then when July 4th is done, they put down the beer and the hot dogs and they're like, okay, now it's whitetail again. You might not need to replace it every year. It just depends on you, right?
Yep.
Outside of that, I just try to make sure everything is looking good. Like I said, all my fasteners are looking good. Nothing's loose, nothing's cracked. If you have a buddy there, making sure your cams aren't wonky when you're full draw. I'm trying to point at things that aren't bow press specific.
Yeah.
Things anybody can do. Even if you have an apartment, you don't got any space for any of this stuff. You can go out to a range and kind of do some of these things.
Yeah.
But it's really more common sense. Like people know when something's wrong. Like if you take a look at it and there's a crack in your limb, and you're like, go to an archery shop, please get something fixed, right?
Just be careful.
Just look at your gear. And then one thing too, if you're brush busting, make sure you check out your pins and everything that's inside your sight. People don't think about that. They're always worried about their string because that's the scary part. What happens if the string goes, right? But you can beat up your sight pretty well too if you're pushing through some brush and you knock a pin out. So make sure your fibers aren't trying to pull out of the pin housing, anything like that.
Yeah.
That's a lot less common, but just checking those things out to start, excuse me, is just a good thing to do. And then obviously just shoot. As far as gear that I'll take with me to make sure I'm good to go in the field, like I said earlier, if it can go wrong for me, it will. So I always have an extra release. So I would also make sure you shoot with your spare release. Just having a release, even if it's the same brand, the same model, shoot with that thing because there's adjustments everywhere. Make sure they're shooting identical, or at least you're comfortable with how that spare release shoots.
Yeah.
For me, I have a cheaper spare release just because I'm not going to put an expensive release in my bag that never does anything.
Yeah.
But I still make sure to shoot with it and have myself be comfortable with that.
I love that. The spare release, I've talked about on this podcast, like have one. Like I had it last year and I even knew I've learned this lesson too many times to keep doing it. But like again, if it can be what you use, great. Or have it something close by. Like I shoot the like the Spot Hog one, the finger release. And my other one is like a True Shot but it's very similar style, but it's just I don't like it quite as much. I've had them
Yeah.
over the years, and so it's like at least I'm comfortable with it. I've spent a couple seasons. I shot a nice buck with my backup one last year, even. But again, it's like have that one little bit of gear in your stuff. It's gonna save you like a serious heartache.
Yeah, and at least have it in the truck, right? I keep
Yeah.
it in my bag, but at least have it in the truck.
Yep.
Because it's the last thing you want is to get to your spot and then boom. Especially the guys that aren't shooting releases that are attached to them. So that's part of the reason why I still shoot an index release.
Same. Yep. Same.
And then you can get wrist straps for all the other things, but it just ends up flopping around too much for me. So I still shoot an index. It is attached to my wrist. It's not going anywhere. I'm good there. And for me, I kind of just prefer that release over anything else.
I have way worse I punch way worse with a thumb release than I do. And I have worse time with target panic actually than I do with my index finger release, which maybe isn't typical to everybody, but definitely something I know is noticed. Okay. Good to know. I'm not the only one.
No, I'm much better with a trigger release in archery than I am actually with a trigger on a rifle. I just am more comfortable. Once I'm at full draw on it with my bow with an index release, I'm pretty good. Back tension, thumb releases, things like that. I just, for some reason, the way I am, it isn't comfortable for me. So try all those things too. If you're just getting into bow hunting, or you want to try, like, don't force yourself to use a release that might seem, I don't know, for lack of better words, cooler to use. Try all those things. If you got buddies that have different releases, put them on your hand, put them on the bow, and try it. But so at minimum, gear that I have with me is the release itself, Allen keys to adjust anything out in the field, and D-loop string. So make sure if you're shooting a compound bow, be able to put a D-loop on your bow.
I can't tie it. I'm just gonna admit it right now. I'm not too proud. I've seen Jared tie him. I can't. I'm sure I could. I just don't know how to yet. So I'm like, that's something I got to do different.
Well, here's the thing: you'll figure it out if it pops off in the woods. So so have some of that around. Watch the good thing about the world we live in now is there's a plethora of videos from a lot of wonderful folks out there that are showing people how to tune their bow, how to paper tune, how to broadhead tune, how to put D-loops on. So there's all this information out there. Review it and try it. Even if you're just tying a D-loop with paracord on a string, like you're not actually putting it on a bow, just tie the knot and just make sure you're comfortable with it, because that's really going to ruin the hunt if you're out there and that thing pulls loose and you can't do anything about it. So obviously you're gonna need a lighter for that too. Lighter, razor blade.
And for smoking, you want to be able to smoke while you're out there. You're gonna need a lighter for it.
I mean, according to all the old fellas in Pennsylvania, that's how you get the big bucks to come around.
My dad has told me that. I'm like, Dad, you can't smoke. He's like, I've shot plenty of deer with a cigarette hanging out. And my uncles have said it. So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, it's just Pennsylvania and Michigan though. No other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Only because of our rich heritage of hunting.
Exactly. It's incredibly rich heritage.
But those essential pieces were what again? I derailed us.
Extra release.
Yep.
Razor blade, lighter, D-loop material, and Allen keys. Those few things right there, being able to adjust your sight, adjust your rest, and put a D-loop on in the field, fits in a small, you can put it in a Ziploc bag if you want, right? And just keep it in your vehicle or keep it in your bag. I typically don't take everything in my bag. It's just the release. But if I have it in my vehicle, I know I can get to it if something's there. And generally I'll keep a field point as well in there.
Okay.
So if I feel something's off on my sight or my rest, I can just ground a couple arrows without having to worry about if I don't have a target with me. Usually I'll keep a small bag target in my truck, but that's not something everybody can do, right? So if I don't, I have a field point that I can pick a nice soft patch of dirt. I know the yardage, let a few fly, and I feel more comfortable. And if I drop my bow or something gets knocked really bad, I'm going to want to do that.
I like that. I do the same thing. Like once October 1 begins, my car is essentially, I got that Trophyline duffel bag.
Oh yeah, the dry bag. Yeah.
I mean, so I'll have my clothes there. I've got a target and my bow and like my bino harness, and it's like they got my saddle stuff. So it's like grab my stuff and I can hunt in a moment's notice. Like whenever I'm ready, if a hunt strikes up in the middle of nowhere, like I'm ready to go no matter what.
Yeah, and you can kind of tell too. Sometimes, you're at work and you just kind of feel it in the air. And you're like, I have to go right now. So yeah, having that stuff with you for me is crucial. Probably annoys my wife more than anything, because if we need to do anything with the kids, I got to take it all out and put all the kids stuff in. But
yeah,
it is what it is, right? But yeah, having that stuff, if you can have a small bag target, great. So you can check things in the field. Most of the time, we're not going to be that far from home, so you can still do these things in your yard or a local range or something before you go out on a hunt if you really feel something's wrong. But having those small things in there as a backup, it's great to have. You're not going to need it most of the time, hopefully, but it's there if you do.
Yeah, love it. Well, okay, so we got gear set. I mean, we could dive into gear. I mean, just go listen to our old podcast.
Forever.
Yeah, it's like there's plenty of talk about different types of broadheads and whatever else. And I'm going to be doing a little bit of both fixed and expandable for elk this year. I figure depending on the distance, it will kind of determine on the.
I played that game for a season or two where I was like, okay, I have an expandable that I might be able to use in certain conditions, and I have the fixed that I prefer to use. I found myself right back at fixed now. I said, it's just, I want to eliminate the potential of something going wrong, because I just have bad luck. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah. All right. Well, maybe. Yeah, I might change. I might change. I've got plenty of time. I haven't got. I ran through all my expandables through turkey season, so it's like I need to get new ones anyways. I've got some fixed, and I'm gonna mess around with that. But the other big part of it is practicing, right? So like Nick, like how are you practicing like right now? It's we're recording this, it's October. Can you imagine?
I wish.
August 7. So this podcast will probably go out next week. What are you doing mid-August to kind of prepare for season?
Sure. So I have the benefit of having a decent sized yard where I can put a plethora of 3D targets. So I have them all out there at random distances, anywhere from 20 to 55 right now. If I go stand in the yard, I might be able to get 78, 79. I'm sorry, in the road. I may or may not have done that a few times, but
yeah, of course, you got to do what you got to do.
I'm shooting at the targets. I have them kind of set at different angles. So some of them are broadside, some of them are, facing away, not completely away, but just trying to get different angles, things that mimic what might happen in the woods. So I'll do that just standing, and then I'll actually get my platform for my tree saddle and I'll put that a couple feet off the ground. So then I will have my body in my mobile hunting setup, or even a fixed position setup. So this is something I think people don't do very often. Even if you use a ladder stand, take that top section, slap it on a tree in your yard, stand up or sit, whatever you got to do, and that's where you're shooting from. So a lot of people just shoot standing in their yard. They do that over and over and over again. And they think, okay, I'm confident at 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever it is, but you're confident standing on flat ground. That's different. So it depends on your hunting style, right? So if you're going to ground hunt this year, I'd recommend you shoot standing, kneeling, sitting on
crisscross applesauce. I'm telling you,
crisscross applesauce. Yeah. It's like you gotta shoot in all the potential ways you might have to shoot in the woods. For specifically the tree saddles, me being with Trophyline, I tell this all the time. When you get a tree saddle, if you have the ability, pick a tree, take your target and move it 360 degrees around the tree. See how your body wants you to achieve that shot. Because you don't want to be surprised at a shot directly behind you where you're turned around, you're really leaning out. You don't know how you're going to react, right? So maybe you're going to need to put one knee in the tree. Maybe you have the core strength to stand up and do that shot. You don't know until you try it. So put yourself in every possible situation you could potentially be in the woods. And that comes down to even, so I don't shoot, when I'm in an elevated position, I take my quiver off my bow.
Same.
Not a lot of people, some people do, some people don't, but I still shoot with my quiver on, because when I'm walking in, it's on my bow. So I shoot with it off and with it on, because I just want to know how it feels. You mentioned your bino harness. Obviously, having that gear on, occasionally shooting with your backpack on is a great thing to do. Just putting yourself in those situations. We have the time now. It might look goofy if you have to go to a range and you're standing there with your backpack fully loaded and you have your stuff on, but give it a shot, because you're going to feel a lot more confident when you're walking to the spot you thought the deer was going to be and he walks out in front of you.
I feel
and
like
now
it's
you have to
less
make this
goofy
shot.
now for people to show. Like if you've ever gone to tack or even
Oh
like
yeah.
a 3D, like I've shown up in like basketball shorts and like a sleeveless shirt or something, like summer wear. And like guys are looking at me like I'm weird because they're got their full back, their frame
Yeah.
backpack and everything on. So like you can get people are way more into it than they ever have been in my life, where it's like they are practicing with their gear, they're dialed, they're engaged. Like it's the modern like whitetail hunter is very different than he was even just like 10 years ago. Very different.
And I think, again, that's the benefit, I think, of technology, because you're seeing all these different things. So people are trying to be like, okay, what can I do that's different and kind of stands out? So it's a little bit of a competition on that, but it's also pushing it in a great way, getting people to do things that are just way more thought out. So one of the other caveats I have that people don't practice very much is different light. So shoot at dawn, shoot at dusk, shoot at that last 5 minutes of light where so many deer die, and maybe turn your light on your sight if your state allows it. I don't know that many people that shoot with a light on their sight right at dusk.
Yeah.
To put yourself in those situations, because now, like I said, you're going to be more confident once it happens in the woods, and that big 160, 170 walks in front of you, not here in PA, but it walks in front of you. You'll be confident that, okay, this is the last 5 minutes. I've made this shot before. The one thing I don't like to do very often, just because it's uncomfortable, is I'll shoot in the rain.
Yeah.
So I'll go out there, I'll put my gear on, and I'll shoot in the rain, just because, again, I want to put myself in those situations. I got bad luck, so I have to work around that bad luck. So shoot in the rain, shoot in the wind. If you have a windy day,
it's ideal.
See how it is. Yeah, like just so take the opportunity you have now with all the time we have before season. Put yourself in every different weather condition and then physical condition that you might be in. Even if you only do it once or twice, at least now your body has a reference, your mind has a reference of that situation when it happens in hunting season.
Yeah, love that. I've got and I posted a lot, but I've got an abandoned building that I have access to.
I've been keeping a watch on you on that. That's pretty cool.
What I like about it is that it's very low light in there. And so it's been very good. And it like sometimes the light is like right in behind you, where it's actually terrible. You can't see your pin at all. And so it's been like kind of helpful because it just puts you in like kind of crappy spots in terms of how light goes. So that's been, and plus I can go inside, and it's a 40-yard range. And I probably have lead poisoning, but I feel like that's like 60-year-old James problem. When he's dealing with that.
For now you're doing fine.
For now I'm fine.
You're doing fine. Yeah, and like broken light too. Light coming through trees that just kind of messes with what you might think the yardage is. All that kind of stuff. Just try to find ways to shoot in that. Not everybody can, but just think of all the things that you might have to put yourself through to actually get the deer down, and try to practice that way.
Yeah. What do you see people doing wrong when they practice?
Oh, geez. Well, I think a lot of people kind of overcompensate draw weight. That's the first thing in archery. They don't want to lower their draw weight. So they will up that draw weight and then have horrible form drawing that bow back, right?
Yeah.
So that's number one for me, the one that I see at ranges. Number two is sometimes guys just shoot for too long, I feel like.
Yeah, agreed.
They're out there, they shoot so long that if they make one bad shot, they have to kind of make up for it. And they're shooting, and they're shooting so much, they're getting tired. And then now they're shooting worse and worse and worse and worse. And now they've lost their confidence. So trying to make sure you keep your confidence up. Like, so shooting is important, but too much becomes a problem sometimes, right? So I'll try to take it where I'm like, I know I'm going to make 10 to 12 shots minimum every day. If I go out there and I put 3 to 4 shots directly where I want them, I might call it for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because my confidence is then high and I know I can execute when the time comes. So sometimes over practicing in the wrong situations, in the wrong mindset, and then not setting yourself up for success in your bow setup is what I see people doing wrong.
Yeah, I love that. There's a video I saw somewhere of a guy that I think a buck walked out or something. He's trying to draw his bow back and he can't. If
Mhm.
you've ever seen it, it's like he's like, and like he
Well,
lets
your
it,
nerves hit too,
your
and
nerves hit and you're cold, you're sitting there for a while.
And that's a great point. So the cold, obviously we can't practice cold right now, but people don't really take into factor if you're sitting, if you do an all day rut hunt and you sit and you don't move all day long and it's freezing cold, when you go to draw that bow back, you are in the worst situation to do it. You're excited now and all of your muscles are cold and stiff. So the draw weight that you have, like for me, I need to be able to put that bow out in front of me and pull back without doing any movement up and down. Like I want to pull as smooth as I possibly, precisely.
Which I do.
So I want to be able to point that bow at the deer and then draw back without anything. So depends on what that poundage is for you. And then I guess back to practice with the draw weight, can you hold that bow back for at least a minute and still make an accurate shot?
Yeah.
That's tough. Like you might be able to pull 70 to 75 pounds even in that fluid motion, but can you hold it there for 1 minute and make a lethal shot? Because that might have to happen to you as well.
Yeah. And that's a big one. Like holding it back will happen. If you hunt, you're gonna have to hold it back and like you practice for it. It's not a fun way to practice. I don't like it. I just don't like to do it. But that's been a huge help for me. And like you said, like you see people, or it's just like the way they practice is they go out, they shoot 20 times at 20 yards, 10 times at, like they do 20, 30, 40 even numbers. And it's like, well, deer are going to come out at 23 yards. Right. And so the different number of arrows or the different distances you pick should be a little funnier too. And just to echo what you said, and this is something that I've been doing a lot more. Usually now I shoot one arrow at a time. I shoot one, grab it, shoot one, grab it. I find sometimes I'm fatigued by arrow 3 or 4, like if I'm shooting in a row, but it's more mental for me. Just because I lose focus. Like I don't pay attention very well, especially if I'm with people. I'm shooting, I'm not really paying attention. My form goes, my draw arm isn't up, I'm not square with my my bow hand or whatever. And so it's just like I'm cutting that out. I'm doing one arrow at a time. Occasionally I'll do maybe 2, but it's like I at least personally need that extra focus because it's just not normal. And I'm not naturally a person that can just focus for many shots.
I don't think a lot of people are really. I think people are just trying to maybe cram in the practice with the time they have. Which is tough. We all, not everybody, but a lot of us have families and responsibilities. So we're just trying to shove all that practice into a short period of time. And everyone's focusing on, okay, I need to get 30 shots off 5 days a week to be ready for season. But if you can execute 5 shots perfectly
that's all you need
every day, that's it. I mean, when you're shooting, hopefully we're only taking 1 shot. So, I mean, as long as you can execute those things with high levels of confidence and consistency, then I feel you're fine. And I typically, when I'm shooting different ranges, I start farther. I go far to close.
Same.
What you said there, a lot of people start 20, 30, 40. So then once they get to 40, their shoulders tired.
Yes.
They're just, like you said, they're starting to not pay as much attention. And then their confidence is just ruined at 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards. So I go completely backwards. So if I hit good at 70, I know even if I'm tired, when I get to 20, I'm drilling it. And then that's how your confidence in the field is just so much higher. And it also seems way easier when you're shooting at 20 than it does at 60 or 70.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's what I do the same way. Like I found like people's like start or like their average shots. Like if you have to go out shoot 10 arrows, everybody picks 20 yards. It's like, I'm going to go, at least if you're out east or whatever, but I've changed that. Like I'm going to shoot, last summer it was most of my shot was 80 yards. I was doing a caribou hunt. I knew it was going to be a farther shot. I was like, if I can just get dialed at 80, anything else is easy. Right. And probably this year I'm in more of the 40 range where that's just my go-to beginning and end range. Typically seems to work for me, whatever,
typically I'll do 90% of my practice 40 and farther. Unless I'm tuning a broadhead or messing with something on my bow where I want to be closer and get things a little bit more precise, Once I have that all set, I am 40 and farther, because
Yep.
like you said, everything else just feels like a chip shot. I had a buck I got 2 years ago, and he came right into 15 yards, and like I didn't even have to think. Threw
Yep.
the bow, put it where it was, and that's where it was, and he was down in 40 yards. And that's what you want. But if you only shoot at 15 to 25, you're just gonna think about it more. So put yourself in those bad situations so that when you have a better situation come in front of you, you're fine.
Totally
Um,
agree. Totally agree. And it's and plus it's kind of just, I don't know, it's more fun. Like if you're only shooting 20 yards, standing up,
yeah,
it's just more fun. Like, what else can you do? And
you got to mix
honestly,
it up.
I will say though, for a while in my life, I could only shoot in the basement of a building that offered me about 20-yard shots, but that was like majority, right? And what
Mhm.
I found as a way to get ready for longer shots, and it helped me immensely during that period of time in my life, was I would do things like I would hang a string down, or I would aim at very, very small. I spent a long time trying to consistently Robin Hood arrows. I'd throw an arrow in there. Now, it was just like something I did to just, again, it's not the same distance, but if you think about it, if you can consistently shoot a quarter at 20 yards, when
Mhm.
you extend to 80 yards, that obviously your group will be bigger, but it's like what you've already figured out how to do is stay steady, work through your pre-shot sequence and all the other stuff. And it's like,
Mhm.
then when you step out to 80, it maybe feels a little different, but you've locked so much in your way of shooting that when that time comes, like I was able to quickly adjust to go a long distance, even though I had really only access to a pretty short range in the basement of an old building.
Yeah. It's all that mental state. People when they get out farther, um, they're just worried about losing their arrow, right?
It
They're
really
worried about
is.
missing and what that looks like, especially if there's nobody around and you miss at 70 yards. You certainly feel a lot less bad than if there's somebody there and they watch you miss at
Yeah, and
70
lose
yards.
your arrow. It goes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
embarrassing.
And so that's what everybody's worried about. So sometimes what I advise people, and I did this for a while, is I actually shot cheaper arrows. Like I shot kind of dirt cheap arrows. And I
Yeah.
did that because I didn't care as much if it hit the ground or I lost it. I'm like, oh, there goes, 20, 30, 40 bucks flying away from me.
Yeah.
But it was only, 6 to 10. And I'd shoot with those cheap arrows, get my distance, got my personal confidence higher. And then I moved back to my more expensive arrows that I wanted to have with me in the woods.
Yeah.
Not everybody has that opportunity, but for me, that's what I found my confidence was dropping at distance. It was worrying about losing the dang arrow.
Same.
So once
Same.
I got over that, I was fine.
But you bring up a good point. Like if you're out and it's like, a tack event or 3D, and it's like, I'm worried about what that guy, I get nervous. He's like, that guy's looking at me. But
Mm-hmm.
the Bible says fear of man is a snare. It is a snare. Don't be afraid of what people think. Because honestly, like, what does that guy have any,
They're
that guy
worried
or
about it
gal you
too.
see? They're thinking about them, not you.
Yep.
And honestly, all that it's going to do is mix you up and set you off in a bad way. And man, that's true for a lot of life.
Yeah,
Um,
and that falls down into even archery season itself, right? Just don't worry about what others are thinking because they're probably not thinking it at all.
yeah. Yeah, they're not thinking about you 100%. They're thinking about themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's end it with this. We're coming up on time here, but we're talking practice. Like, what are some fun ways you like to practice? What's like some of your favorite, like, this is, you
Ooh.
go out, you grab your ball. I'm like, I'm gonna spice this up. This is gonna be fun. Do you do any games or anything like that? What do you do? I gave a good example, right? For a while, one thing I loved to do in the basement of a building was try to Robin Hood arrows more than one, like keep it going, right? And I
Oh,
didn't
you're
get
trying
there.
to
It was
stack
tough.
them.
Yeah, I wanted to
Wow.
get like one and then another, and like I could only get the first one pretty irregularly. Like I was always close. You shoot fletchings off and stuff, but like I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't consistently hit. But it did help, and it was kind of fun to do.
What I've done is, whenever my son is out there with me, I'll let him pick where I shoot.
Yep.
So I let him say,
Cool.
shoot this. So, I have a couple different targets with different shapes on them, and he'll pick the shape that I shoot. So I just kind of mix it up. So I'm not thinking, oh, I'm going to shoot this circle now. I'm going to shoot this square now. I'm going to shoot this.
Yep.
Um, my plan now is to get him. He's really into Pokemon right now.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get him some stickers, and I'm just going to have him slap over and he'd say, okay, go shoot Pikachu now, or go shoot, whoever now. And I'm going to have him at different yardages. So I'm having to change up what I'm shooting with him, and it gets him excited, which makes me feel more confident and fun out there. So I'm really just kind of letting him help me with the randomness of my practice. That's where my fun is right now. But in the past, yeah, it's been just shooting at smaller and smaller stuff to see if I can hit it consistently. I definitely didn't go as far as to try to ruin other arrows by shooting them with another arrow, but it's interesting. I never heard somebody wanting to stack more than one Robin Hood up.
It was fun, and I just wanted to see if it could happen, because here's what I had a cousin who was kind of doing similar stuff, and he was like Robin Hood and arrows and like whatever. I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna tell him. I never told him I was doing it. And him and actually Jared. But I'm like, I want to just come out with 2 arrows, or I guess 3 stacked, and be like, see, this boy's like, this is how it's done. But I spent all winter doing it, not saying anything, because I didn't want him to like tip him off. But it was, like I said, it was actually it was just a helpful way to just be consistent and be very, very precise with my shoot.
I love it. Maybe I'll try it. I'll get a couple of cheapos out there and just sling them, see what I can do.
If you get it, I'll just say this now, because I don't want to have any pride stand in the way of me and my future success, but like, I'll be very jealous if you did it. Like, you'll have done something that I could not do.
If I do it, I will only send the picture to you.
And then I'll post online and claim it for myself.
I'm okay with it.
No, it's good. Well, Nick, I mean, we're up on time. Like I said, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. Given the work that you do at Redline, and people who listen to this podcast know we're shooting your sights and your rests and your stabilizers, and we love the work you're doing. That's why I figured, I mean, you guys are living this stuff every day. Got to have you on to talk archery. So thank you again. Everybody go check him out, and Redline and Trophyline out, and be ready. We've got another pretty cool episode coming out next week on scouting. So if you're listening to this and you have questions, you better hurry up and send us those questions, because we're going to be recording soon, and I want to make sure I'm answering everything that comes out. So Nick, thanks again. Everybody keep listening. We appreciate y'all.
Well, thanks for having me.